Hi, I'm Molly from Wild Olive, and in this stitch along video, I am going to be showing you my cross stitch pattern called One More Chapter. And this video is a little bit different from how I do most of the videos on my channel. It's not really a tutorial. It's more like probably closer to a podcast, but I say that with hesitation. But I'm going to walk you through, I'm going to stitch on my project. I'm going to talk a little bit about the inspiration for the pattern and what, some of the things that I do while I'm working on this project. And in future videos in this series, you'll see more of that, like different kinds of projects, whether it be cross stitch, embroidery, felt crafts. I will just kind of talk about those projects and the things that I like to do while I'm working on them. And I'll probably have some sort of a hot beverage in my hand along the way as well. So that's what this is going to be about. It'll be a little mix of watching like actual stitches go into place on fabric and also just watching me stitch and talking. So that's what you can expect. This video is, essentially it's brought to you by my Coffee Clatch, which is my membership program. Uh, Members at some levels receive a video like this every single month that's exclusive to the Coffee Clatch. And it was so much fun that I thought I would bring it to everyone on YouTube. So here we are. If you want more information about the Coffee Clatch, I will put it in a link in the description so you can find that as well. But yeah, this is just going to be a little bit of, well, we'll see where this goes. All right, so let me just have one more sip of this, and then I will show you kind of the start of where the One More Chapter pattern came from. Okay, so early days, I had sketched some kawaii shelves. That's all that I had on this entire page. This little shelf unit, and I think it's still adorable. And I might still make some other kind of a thing with shelves. But if you notice on here, it has some books. It has a globe, and that was something that I was planning on doing. I thought it would be a really cute embroidery pattern specifically, maybe cross stitch as well. Now we're going to jump ahead in my notes, and now we have a round version with shelves, and this is essentially what became the One More Chapter pattern. At the time, I was calling it literally adorable, like literature. Um, yeah, that title went away. But it was kind of like the idea of these shelves full of books. And by the time that I got to this version, it was because I was working on this and designing it for Caterpillar Cross Stitch. And they were looking for something that was book or library themed for one of their club boxes. And tell you what, I love my library. I used to work at my local library. My sister is a librarian, and there are books everywhere in my house. I love books. I don't have enough time to read all the books that I would like to, but I love books. So making this pattern was fantastic, and I loved being able to do it. I always also find it really fun and challenging when someone presents me with an idea, especially with some limitations, like you can only use this many colors, or please do it in this size, or whatever. And so that was a really fun way for me to work on this pattern. And so that's kind of the background for this. Now I'm making this pattern available in my shop online as a download. So I'm working on my own stitched sample as I make this video. So now I'm going to stop talking about this, and I'm going to actually get started on the stitching and take you along for that journey. So let's do that.
All right, well, cross stitch isn't maybe the most exciting thing to watch in length, but just show you at least how I'm going to get this started, and then we can chat. That'll be a little bit more fun. All right. So as you can see, I've threaded, well, it looks like 2 strands. It's really 1 strand folded in half because I like to use the loop method. So the other end is my loop. That will be for starting this. I have a piece of kind of a very light apricot Aida that I'm going to use for this. And honestly, I didn't measure it. I had this just left over from another project. I'll give it a quick measure. That's like a little over 10 by almost 10. So that's fine. All right. So to start this, I'm just gonna crease the center there, fold it in half, crease the other way. So right there is my center point. It doesn't have to be dead center because I do have enough room on this. But let's see here. I'm actually gonna work with it rolling this way because of how I like to hold my fabric. So I don't always start right at the center, but for this, because it's like different little motifs around, like if it were one solid design, I generally don't like starting at the center, but for this, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I just need to count up 3 rows, and I need to go over, let's see, 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I might be off by 1, but again, it's not really going to matter. All right, so I've come on the back here with this loop going through this, and I'm going to snug that up. So that's the first half of 1 stitch, and just going to go over, skip 1, and work on this first row. This is the red book laying towards the middle of the center shelf. So, wow, this is very exciting stuff. I'm going to have to start counting soon where I get to this, but that'll be all right. Yeah, so this is the start. I use the Danish method of cross stitch where I do as much as possible. I do all 1/2 of the stitches, and then I go back in the other direction and finish off those X's. So a few more before I have to really count this. But anyway, I'm not going to make you just watch me stitch like this the entire time. We will do a bit more of that in this video. But I'm going to pause and count this, and then I will sit down. I'll stitch and we can chat, and I'll talk about this project and other things as well.
Still enjoying my tea today. Usually a coffee person, but it's tea for this afternoon. Getting late. I'm getting old, and I can't drink a lot of coffee in the evening. That's terrible. Okay. I'm getting a little more tea infused, and let's set that aside, and I will show you the current state of one more chapter. All right. Ta-da! So this is essentially all of the items that are on the middle shelf in the pattern, and there's just some little bits to fill in on the books right now, and then the shelf underneath it. So I am just gonna, I have my project bag here. I'm gonna try not to drop that as I work, but I also have my pattern close by. Let's try to follow the pattern. Sometimes talking and stitching at the same time, not always ideal. By the way, as I was starting this off, you might have noticed that I was using the sewing method, which means I don't work in a hoop. This is my preferred method um, to hold the fabric, and then just, you have to be really careful about the tension, but I prefer to hold it like this. However, when I am adding stitches in between things, um, like small amounts of stitches, especially when there's completed cross stitching around it, I tend to use the stabbing method. So I'm going up and down. Um, it's easier. Sometimes if you use the sewing method, it will catch on things, and I don't like that. I would think no one would like that actually. So yeah, work my way across here. Get to this side. There we go. Ready to add some more stitches. The reason that I am doing this on a really light peach color is so that the white pops off of the fabric a little bit more, but you could definitely do this on white. Um, the other thing is, I mean, you really could choose you could choose to change the colors in the design. You know, if you are comfortable with selecting a color palette, then you could absolutely swap out colors to fit your personal style. This is kind of like um, got basically like a rainbow of colors in here, and it's not like a super traditional because it's got like aqua and a lighter green in there, but you know, you can go with what works for you. Get to here, and then I'm going to end off and start again on the next section of books. I don't want to jump over there. Yeah, so this is like my first regular YouTube video like this. Thought this would just be a fun time to talk a little bit about some of the things that I would normally about when I make these for other folks, just a little get to know me time. Um, yeah, so here's a fun fact about me. Although I started cross stitching like this much when I was maybe like, I don't know, middle school age, I was not really a cross stitcher. That was not my thing. I got bored doing cross stitch. I used to just really avoid it. It felt too slow to me, and so I liked embroidery better. But then I was approached one time and asked, "Oh, hey, would you like to design some cross stitch patterns?" And I was like, "Well, you know, like I don't do cross stitch." And they were like, "Yeah, but do you want to design some cross stitch patterns?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll try that." And so there was a period of time when I designed cross stitch patterns and never stitched them. Other people stitched the samples. And that was really my start in cross stitch design. And then there was a point that I needed to do a pattern and I didn't have someone to stitch the sample for me. And so I had to stitch it myself. And I stitched with the stabbing method and it took a really long time, but I still kind of enjoyed it. So somewhere along the way, my temperament changed for it. And then I discovered the sewing method, which is what I primarily use now. And it cross stitch got a lot faster. And then I liked it even more. There's something really nice about the rhythm of it. So then I was making my own samples and really enjoying it. Sometimes other people do my samples, and my sister works as my stitching assistant, and so Um, she helps me get things done in a much faster way still. And then I wrote 2 cross stitch books. So who knows what path you might be on that takes you in an unexpected place. I did not expect to write 2 cross stitch books, but they are called Cross Stitch Celebrations Bundle of Joy and Cross Stitch Celebrations Graduation. And yeah, so now here I am working on more and more cross stitch patterns and loving it. So in fact, as I sit here and stitch this pattern, I have more patterns that I have been commissioned to design. So I will keep on with the cross stitch, even if future uh, Wild Olive Stitch Along videos here on YouTube have me working on things like embroidery and felt and all of that. So I will say, I recognize, watching these stitch here is maybe not the most exciting thing to watch, but maybe listening is okay. I kind of go back and forth with how I feel about different types of, I say, kind of like the way that a cross stitch project, like the area of a cross stitch project, um, because I enjoy the kind of the rhythm of stitching, and um, I like being able to do cross stitch like while watching a favorite TV show. I I kind of like the areas of like solid, all one color, and I tend to design my patterns that way, where you have more um, areas that are not lots of tiny little details, although occasionally I do. And that's because you don't have to count quite as much. You don't have to pay attention quite like there's not all that much detail to it. So you can, with a book, for example, you can make your way across a row and then just repeat that row multiple times. So I do like that. However, some of these smaller areas, like where I'm filling in the little details on the books, those are also enjoyable to work on. And so, you have a little mix of things. You can decide what you're going to work on. It's like as soon as these book details are filled in, then there's going to be this big long shelf of black, and it's just 2 rows, but there's something very like relaxing about working across, not thinking about it until you get to the end and you're like, okay, got it, 3 more stitches left, 2 more stitches, and then you work your way back across the other way and you don't have to think about it. So um, I do like that. I think that's a good way to um, unwind a bit as you stitch, and that's obviously one of the benefits of lots of crafts is that you can kind of get into a good headspace with it. Complicated projects can result in a little more frustration than I always want. So, oh my goodness, I I have a tiny bit of thread left here, and I'm finishing off this one little section of yellow, and that is happy indeed. All right, ending the thread, going through the backs here, and then I think I need to pull out maybe some white next. So, all right, scissors. I always lose my scissors and my needle, so okay, I found them. Also, also just to be real, I tend to drop my embroidery scissors so much. I have multiple pairs of embroidery scissors, but I drop them regularly. This one has a little bend to the tip, so Oh well. All right, I'm going to get some white thread going, keep going on this, and we will pick up again as I add the final details to this pattern, but we'll keep it, short and sweet, easy to watch and stitch along with. All right, so here is the current state of one more chapter. You can see all of the hole stitches are done, except that I think I see one missing hole stitch that needs to be fixed. Oh, it's because I missed it. I messed it up on my pattern. I'm fixing that. Okay. Um, uh, so I'm now stitching faces on here, and these faces are done with French knots and back stitch, but the pattern also includes the entirely beginner friendly version that is all just hole stitch. So the faces are done hole stitch. My personal preference is I like the look of it when it has French knots and back stitch, but I thought why not include both versions? So um, the original caterpillar cross stitch version is only the whole stitch, so that it's um, really easy to pick up and learn. Um, so yeah, that's what that one is, and then I just added this extra version with the French knot and back stitch. But since this is like showing you me working on this, but it's not exclusively that, I have to tell you something that just happened as I was working on this. So I actually was getting ready to start the video going, and I looked down at my hands and they were so dry. And, obviously that happens. I'm recording this and it's very, very early March. I live near Chicago. It's cold. Okay. And my hands will get dry. And I usually try to keep them pretty well moisturized, but they were looking dry. So I was like, all right, I need to put some lotion on. Put the lotion on, and then, of course, I'm faced with now my hands feel a little bit greasy from the lotion, and I knew that I did not want that on my cross stitch because, especially working without a hoop and where I'm holding the fabric, it's like, well, that's not good for what I'm doing. You want to keep your hands, clean and not oily. So it's like, okay, so what should I do? Because I actually need them moisturized and all of that. And my solution to this was I went and sort of rinsed just like the insides of my hands, and I rubbed it really well and then dried them off. And that seemed to help, but that isn't always, I don't know if that was the best thing to do, but it was what I needed to do in this moment. So I would be curious, what is your routine for keeping your hands well moisturized and also keeping the oils at a minimum on your work? Please share. Okay. Also, I start usually with the loop the loop method to start, and that does not always work on adding faces. So let's see, which way do I want to go? Yeah, so I'm just starting by going under some stitches. So get to see the back of this stitching, and uh, I am I like to try and keep things neat and tidy, but I'm also not super bothered by if this were jumping all over the place, I couldn't do that. But a little bit is not going to hurt anybody. So just remember that. I do these faces with 2 strands, just like the rest of the stitching. You could do 3 strands though, if you prefer. And I also, gotta try really hard on the eyes to make sure that you don't pull those French knots through the fabric, because that can happen if you make them really, really tight or you just pull too hard. And the same can be true with the back stitch. It won't pull through to the back, but if you pull it too hard, it starts to vanish in between the stitches like that. So that happens. Sure. Now I'm going to pull the other stitches. The black is back on track. Gentle, gentle. And the red that I pulled just a bit while I was trying to fix that, it seems to be covered by this back stitch. If I needed to, I would just go to the back and fix it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to finish up the faces on here. And then we'll get this in a hoop to show it off. All right, are you ready to see the finished product? One more chapter. There it is. I love this in this little hoop. This is a 6-inch hoop, and it just fits like, almost right up to the edges. You could put this in a 7-inch hoop and have a little bit more space around it. If you were stitching in a hoop, if that's the way you like to do that, you probably would want to work in a 7-inch hoop because it will give you a little bit more room, especially as you're stitching around those edges. So I think this would look so cute framed just like this. Put it up on like a bookshelf so that it's kind of like one of the little things that are already on those shelves. And sometimes I'll just lean a hoop up on a shelf with books, or if you put it on a little easel, especially if your shelves are a little taller, it's really adorable that way. Just to like be totally real, let me show you the back of my hoop because I don't really have a problem showing you this. This is what mine looks like. This is not like a recommended finishing technique for cross stitch, but if you were just going to put this on your own shelves, it would be entirely acceptable for you to do it this way. Basically, what I did is I just sort of worked my way around folding the edges in. I didn't even trim it to be round, although that would maybe be better. Not maybe, it definitely would be. But then, so that it really holds in place, I take an iron and I just sort of iron the edges a little bit, and it kind of helps fold or crease those down and hold them in place. And like if you were going to gift this to someone, you should finish this and make it pretty. But if you're just putting this on your own shelf, it's okay to just finish it off quickly and enjoy it that way. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I hope that you enjoyed stitching along with me on this little journey. And yeah, I'm excited to show you more things that I'm working on. And I think next time that we get together on one of these videos, it'll be at my crafty little cottage. I'll show you a little bit of that, and it'll just be kind of fun to stitch along on the next thing to happen. If you enjoyed this video, of course, I would love it if you subscribe, share it with a friend who wants to stitch along as well, and just keep making things because that's what I like doing and sharing it with you. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time.